creative burnout comes for all artists. In my last couple videos, I've talked about more materials. Today, I want to talk about creative burnout, what it is, how it can manifest, ways to avoid it, and ways to pull yourself out of creative burnout when it does inevitably come. What is creative burnout? Well, for me, it looks a couple of different ways. It primarily manifests as a lack of desire to paint and having no ideas for what to paint, which leads me to dread going to the easel and to almost like a child not wanting to go to bed, finding any task or commitment I can find to make it so that I cannot paint. I also start to retreat and not want to share my work. And I also start to serially be on Instagram and thinking, oh, this will inspire me to get back into painting, and it inevitably just pushes me further. Which it leads me to my 3 tips for how to avoid creative burnout and how to pull yourself out when it does come. It does come for everyone, and I just want to emphasize that at the beginning. It's not a failure that you become creatively burnt out. We as artists cannot maintain a 100% level of creativity from the first day we pick up the brush to the last day we pick up a brush. It's just not possible, and no one can. So you're not alone in experiencing creative burnout. I learned these tricks sort of on accident and the hard way when a couple of years ago I experienced an extreme episode of creative burnout. I had had a very wonderful show season the year before, and I had ridiculous expectations of myself for the next show season, and I was hating my time at the easel. The calendar dates that showed when the deadlines for the shows for that season were screaming at me. You know, I would wake up and I would think about those dates and how many days I had left to create a masterpiece. And I was sitting at the easel with that intention. How do I just create a masterpiece? My ego was sitting closer to the canvas than my brain. And that was the training ground for me for learning these 3 ways to avoid and come out of creative burnout. Number 1, there is a saying, comparison is the thief of joy. In this case, the reality is comparison is the thief of creativity. When you are in creative burnout or you are having self-doubt, protect your creativity. Do not look at social media before you are starting your creative time. When you are going to the studio, to the easel, to the drawing board, whether it's in a separate standalone building or a place you rent, or your studio is in your home, or your studio is the kitchen table while your children are coloring next to you. It doesn't matter. Protect that creative space and your time, your mental composition as you come into creating, as you enter and approach the easel. It is not a time to look at social media. What happens when you look at social media right before you begin your own creative process is you fill your brain with everyone else's creative ideas and their compositions and their colors and what they're working on, and it can really muddy the water, especially when the water is already muddy. Protect that time. A great thing to do when you are approaching the easel is to imagine success. I'm going to have success at this painting, and have the ideas or the images of paintings that you love, that are your favorites, that are inspiring to you. Pull those up in your brain and be ruminating on those sorts of paintings rather than looking at all of your peers and the shows they're getting into or galleries that they have, etc. Protect your creative space. Second would be to seek outside inspiration. When you are having creative burnout is also the time that you are likely going to least want to reach out. Reaching out could look like a lot of different things. It could be phoning a friend, texting a picture of the painting that you're working on to a close friend who you trust their advice, who are ideally a better painter than you are, and saying, I could really use some help with this right now. I'm struggling. This is probably the hardest of the three to implement because it is the least likely thing you are going to want to do at the time, but it is also going to be the most helpful for you. It's sort of like people say, getting up early is going to change your life, but some of us just can't stop hitting the snooze button and we're being our own worst enemy. We need to have self-discipline in this area to avoid and pull ourselves out of that creative burnout. We do have responsibility here. It could also, looking for outside inspiration could also look a couple different ways, more than just asking a friend. It could be looking at your art books. Maybe you have a huge collection and they're all dusty. Pull them out and look at those pictures. And don't be thinking the entire time, I can't believe how amazing these are. I'm just such a bad artist that I can't create like this, that I haven't painted for X amount of time. No. What you're thinking is, I love the colors of this painting, and start getting yourself excited to mix colors when you can get into the studio. All of a sudden you're going to start feeling this, I want to get in the studio, instead of I just can't stand being even close to that room. Your anxiety starts to drop, and suddenly that curiosity, can I mix a color like that? Or I love this composition in this particular painting. How could I use a similar composition with my painting? Oh, this composition would be the perfect solution for the painting that I'm struggling with. All of a sudden, you're going to start getting these ideas. Maybe you don't have a big art book collection, no big deal. You can go to the library and look at those books, check them out for a little while, or you can go to your local half-price books or other bookstore. You don't even have to buy them. Take yourself on a little date, go and look at all of those, and come back with all that inspiration. The third thing I suggest, and this is probably the most important, it is the most important for me, would be to know your worth. Your worth is not defined by your best painting, your biggest achievement or award, or sale price of your painting. Neither is it defined by your worst painting, your worst painting day, how many times you had to repaint the face on the painting that's on your easel, or how many rejection letters you've got this year. Your worth is defined not by painting. Painting is something that you do and not something that you are. For me, my worth is found in my faith. I am a born-again Christian, and I find my source of faith in my identity as a child of God. That cannot change, that cannot be taken away from me, and it cannot be diminished by a bad day at the easel. When I am struggling creatively, this is undoubtedly something that has been misplaced in my heart and brain, and I am working to have value by doing things, and I don't need to. And when I get this back into a proper frame, I can create with joy and abundance rather than stress to prove that I am worthy. Your worth is not in your paintings and the success of a particular painting day or even a painting month. Creative burnout does come for us all, but it doesn't have to be crippling. And I have found these three avenues for avoiding and coming out of creative burnout to be radicalizing to my creative process. I had a period of time where I really thought I understood to some level how artists spiral, and put the brush down and don't pick it back up. But that would be such a shame. Your art is such a gift to the world. And if you have any tips for creative burnout, how to avoid it, how to overcome, please share them with me. I'm always eager to learn more. A key way to avoid creative burnout is to have an artistic community that you can reach out to, that you can be involved in and get advice and inspiration from. That's really the main reason that I have started Broadcasting Brushers, the online life drawing group that I host twice a month on YouTube with 4K resolution of a live model sitting. I'm painting, you're painting, we're chatting together. That's the main reason I've started this and why I have poured my heart into this life drawing group, is to connect artists not only in a local geographic space, but also artists across the world. Consider coming and painting with us. If you want to see what it's like, you can go to the Patreon page and find out more information. There's a couple other tiers in there that might serve you well. Check it out. I hope I get to paint with you soon.